Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, got another Dragonheir video where I think I need to apologize. So, in my previous Dragonheir video, I was a little unsure of whether or not I really enjoyed the game. Don't get me wrong, I do thoroughly enjoy auto chess, or you know what I mean, that kind of style. But as I was playing it, I was thinking to myself, this isn't really wowing me. And then about an hour and a half, 2 hours in, right after I ended, of course, right as I ended the recording, it almost feels like the actual game opens up. Because I'm sitting in my camp and then a random guy shows up. He's like, get in, loser, opens a portal, and then boom, the actual game is laid out in front of me. Almost a kind of ARPG style game where you move around the overworld map and you collect things, you get into battles. Of course, the battle system is reminiscent of what I'm used to with Raid, except it's a little more involved and a little more strategic. And I do enjoy that. And it's just kind of nicer to look at. So afterwards, I was hooked. And from then on, I've just been grinding this game for about a week now. So I want to talk about the things I enjoy, the things I don't enjoy, and eventually we'll kind of talk about whether or not I think this is a pickup for most people, right? So the real meat and potatoes of the game is going to be the adventure mode. This is their story mode kind of playthrough of the game where they have actual story writing, they have actual voice acting. It's insane to me because coming from Raid, you don't really pay attention to the campaign, but this actually was an interest. You know what I mean? If you know, you know. But for me, this was actually interesting and made me want to follow the story. And so as you can see here, if I bring up the map, you've got the this overworld map. And as you move around the map, you get, you have your main quest and then you have side quests. And all of it kind of plays into that ARPG style, reminiscent of Diablo or Path of Exile that I thoroughly enjoy. I love ARPGs. Tons of time in Diablo 3, played a good amount, not a ton of Path of Exile 1 and 2. And recently, Last Epoch has been my most favorite of the three, a sort of in between in complexity between Diablo and Path of Exile. And it's half the price of Diablo 4. So if you like ARPGs, I strongly suggest, checking out Last Epoch. But this is not a video about Last Epoch. So you're going through the adventure and they've got a couple of different game modes. I cleared all of the ones that were the tower defense, but they basically have a couple of different game modes within the overall game design, right? And so for some reason I can't grab my characters. So this is the main game mode that you're playing, and it's kind of a 5v whatever winds up on this board. Very reminiscent of Raid, except there's also this grid feature where depending on where you place your characters, I don't know if they're called champions in Dragonheir. But I'm just going to call them champions. Depending on where you place your champions, their abilities are kind of predicated off of this grid-based hex, like where they are targeting, the way the abilities target, right? So for instance, Hokedin or Hochedin, or however you pronounce his name, very cool, kind of reminds me of the Lich King from WoW. His ultimate ability is going to hit the entire board, right? And instead of there being like turn cooldowns, because it's an active fight style, every 11 to 18 seconds, I'm assuming this is the first time and then this is every time afterwards, is kind of how I'm reading that, right? But basically on a second counter is when these abilities are going to go off, and instead of speed they have skill recharge, which lowers this number so that the abilities are firing faster, right? So you set your guys down on a board and then you just hit play and you just kind of watch them go. Right now I'm using a kind of, I've been playing around with testing teams out. And one thing I do appreciate about this game that I'll talk about in a little bit is that it feels like you don't get punished for trying to test stuff out. One thing I always hated about Raid is Raid felt like it was too much of a wiki game. And what do I mean by that? Wiki games tend to be super complicated. They tend to be kind of punishing if you don't know what you're doing. And so they're the kind of games that incentivize you to have a wiki page open on your second monitor to know that you are essentially doing the right thing. What comes to mind, we were talking about ARPGs, Path of Exile. Path of Exile was fun, but the first ever character I made in Path of Exile, I bricked him. I bricked the character. I got myself to a point where I put my talents into I had done a bad talent spread, trying to test stuff out. And then I couldn't farm the resources that you need to reset your talents effectively enough to where it was kind of feasible for me to play that character anymore. Like I could slowly and painstakingly farm the map or whatever to get that resource to reset. But at that point, I threw my hands up. I said, you know what, I'm done. Whereas with this game, because the way the champions level, they kind of have the same exact, almost the same exact setup in Raid, where you've got your gear. There's 6 slots, similar to Raid, but there are no artifacts. There are artifacts, I think, but there's just one artifact, and the one artifact is actually super impactful, like completely changes a character, because rather than it just being more raw stats, it's, you know, almost like crazy set bonuses, right? So if you see here, I have the Ring of Winter on Hokoden. When the wearer deals frost damage, or when the wearer deals damage to an enemy under frost, there's a 30% chance of creating an ice storm at their position. It does a bunch of cold damage predicated off of their attack, and then, you know, a trigger rate, stuff like that, right? So they only have one artifact, and then they have the helmet, the weapon, chest piece, gloves, and then 2 almost like amulet slots. They're called runes. They don't have set bonuses that I know of right now, but they're just more stat sticks, right? And then we have some pretty cool set bonuses on the gear once you hit legendary. One thing I'm trying to figure out with this is in Raid, we have a rule, it's stats over sets. And basically that's because usually the sets, especially early game, are kind of weak. And so their set bonuses don't matter as much as just getting the raw stats that a champion needs. Whereas here, some of these sets actually seem kind of useful regardless, mostly because some of the stats that you want, like skill haste. As I understand it, the only way to get skill haste, at least that I know of, is, can you get them on the runes? No, you can't get them on runes. So it's basically the only way to get skill haste is through sets. And so if you have a character that really wants skill haste so that they're just firing their abilities off over and over again, it seems like you might want to do sets over stats sometimes. I don't know. Like I said, I'm completely new, and a lot of this is more intuitive, having already played gacha style games, but some of this is a bit of a learning curve, right? I do like how easy it is to pick up though, because all of your champions level off of a overall account level, right? So as you can see, my account is level 79. That means every champion I own, regardless of whether or not I pulled them at the very start of my account playthrough, or whether I pull them 5 minutes from now, they will all start at level 79. And then from there, the other things we can do to obviously make them stronger is there is a mastery system, although it's not nearly as complicated as raids, which I don't know if I prefer. It's hard because in raid, there's a lot of masteries setups that are just kind of cookie cutter. A general best PvE mastery setup, and once you know it, you're going to apply it to everybody. Whereas this seems like maybe there's less talents, but they sometimes seem a little more meaningful. Kind of depends on the champion, because essentially it seems like all frost based champions have these 3 trees, and essentially if you're a nuker, you're grabbing one of these 2, and if you are a tank, you're grabbing one of these, or you're grabbing this one, right? So I don't know, right? We also have a inspire mechanic. So you only ever get one copy of a champion on your account. Any excess copies for rares and epics, they just give you like a resource, like the resource you need to upgrade relics. For legendaries, you get in these soul imprints, which is basically in raid terms, kind of like +1ing, +2ing a champion. You can also trade these for legendary relics. I'm not sure which is the most appropriate course of action, but that's kind of something I'm learning along with the game, right? So one thing I do appreciate about this game, as I kind of showed, is that you don't get punished as hard for trying new things, right? Now, as you're trying new things out, you've got the adventure mode, but you also have kind of your bog standard dungeons, right? Temporal Vortex, this is just clan boss for raid players. Like if you're a raid player, this is just Dragonheir's clan boss, except it's pretty much the exact same. Yeah. No, it's just the exact same. You're trying to do as much damage before your team dies. And then depending on the damage you deal, you get goodies once a day, right? Then we have our equipment dungeons. This guy is going to give you your weapons and headpieces. This guy is going to give you your chests, gloves, and then your runes. Outside of that, we have competitive. Now, this is interesting. Blade Coliseum was kind of fun, although I'll be honest, I didn't do anything with it because I had no idea how it worked. But essentially, Blade Coliseum, you draft characters in gear. And so it's actually a more skill-based setup than, say, what we're used to in Raid, where all of the PvP setups are, what characters do you have? Do you have the meta champions? Do you have the relics that they need and stuff like that, right? Because if you don't, you're just not going to compete at a high level. Blade Coliseum, this is, what do you know about the game? And it's kind of why I really didn't do much with it, because I didn't know anything about the game. So I just threw together a bunch of teams that looked good, and I got to, I think, the second or third knockout round, and then I lost. It is what it is. Realm-wide arena, I've clicked on this before. I don't know what this is. I guess, oh, so is this my lineup? So I guess you just set a lineup and then it auto battles people. Well, let's put in the lineup that we've actually been using for basically everything, shall we? Which basically for us has kind of been a sort of just a super tanky team with, we have 3 nukers, but this guy, I can't remember his name, Torin and Urion, these guys, he's our healer and he is a ally protector with a shield, right? So, and then Rowena, this is the one thing I did look up, is whether or not she was a useful nuker. Turns out she's actually one of the best epic nukers from what I saw, what I read. So if you're a Dragonheir player, you know more than I do. You know, don't lose your mind. Don't kill the messenger. This is just the stuff that I was finding online. Outside of her, Lysenia is also apparently a really good nuker, and Hoganen's also a really good nuker. And they all kind of synergize by these two placing frost on people, and then Rowena gets to ignore defense on enemies who have frost on them. So I don't know what this is. I don't know if this is just a kind of an auto. I don't know. It says my attack win rate is 70% and my defense win rate is 0. I don't remember fighting anybody. I guess I was supposed to be challenging people here. I don't know. All right. I should probably do more of that then, I guess. As you guys know, I'm not a huge fan of PvP in gacha games, but I do what I need to do to get through like dailies and stuff like that. On our regular arena, so this is just straight up like classic arena in Raid. I think I ended up being able to get to, where was it? I got to rank, I think I got to like rank 25. That was the highest I was able to push. And to be fair, I feel pretty good about that. Now, I imagine this server probably only has like 100 or 200 players. So it's not super, you know, it's not like I was 20th in the world, but I was quite satisfied with where I'd gone. Obviously at this point I've dropped down to 209, you know what I mean? And it seems like as time goes on, players are getting stronger and stronger teams, obviously. So ranking back up to that like 25th spot, probably not in the cards for us, but hey, you know what? We'll take it. We got there at some point, you know? What else? We have a ton of events. The Shadows Return event has this weird, I don't know, it almost reminds me of a point and click adventure from, you know, the early Flash days. You know, you finish 5 chapters, you get some cool rewards. Outside of that, it seems like they just run a ton of events. This is predicated off of something that is the most interesting aspect to me about Dragonheir, and we'll talk about it right now. So, what is the end game like for Dragonheir? And the end game is seasonal resets. I know. I was kind of surprised about this too, but then I started to realize something. I wasn't sure what to spend my worm marrow on because I have a ton of it. I've got like 10,000 worm marrow, right? As you can see here, I've got 10,000 worm marrow. Wasn't sure what to spend it on, right? Because it reminded me of shards in raid, or gems in raid rather. And you know, those you have to be very careful with if you're trying to min-max. And the more I get into a game, the more I start to care about actually min-maxing. So I started looking up, what do you use worm marrow on? And overwhelmingly, it was Heliolite dice, which are essentially, they're kind of like ancient shards in raid, except with better odds for legendaries, as I understand it, right? There are 2 different shards, they're dice, and they're Starlight summons and Heliolite summons. And as I understand it, the Heliolite summons actually do have a guaranteed legendary pull after 70 pulls. Whereas the Heliolite, you can get legendary heroes from Heliolite dice, but your only guarantee is epic. So kind of something similar, right? And everyone overwhelmingly is like, just convert your worm marrow into Heliolite dice. For us in raid, turning gems into ancient shards is like, once in a blue moon if you needed to get through an event, fine, it's okay, you can do it, but you don't want to, that's not what you want to dump your gems into. And it made sense to me because the way, once I realized that this is a seasonal game, but not everything resets. You keep all of your, I think you keep your worm marrow, you keep your dragon crystal. I didn't see anything about losing or keeping your Heliolite dice. That would kind of stink if you were trying to bank Heliolite dice for an event and at the end of the season you lost them. That would kind of stink, but I wonder if there's a thing where they convert Heliolite dice into worm marrow, because the worm marrow apparently always stays. Also, your champion roster does not reset, and that's when it hit me. That's why everyone's saying turn your worm marrow into Heliolite dice, because it's one of the only things on your account that won't reset season to season. And I actually think this is really cool, and here's why. One, as an ARPG player, we are no strangers to seasonal resets. And it makes sense now why that uncanny valley of an ARPG in a gacha game form started to register with me, right? Because this is basically a gacha ARPG. That might not be as mind-breaking for others as it was for me, but you know, forgive me here. I've done like Element Fission, Summoner's War, Raid, and a couple others that all went through the super standard style of gachas. I'm not used to gacha ARPGs. But what it means is I spend this season, I get a bunch of champions, then the seasonal reset happens, but I keep the champions that I have. So next season, maybe I want to try out different teams. Maybe I want to try and push with right now we're using a frost team. Maybe next season we try a poison team or a fire team. You know what I mean? And we use that to push. And I actually think that is a great system. I really do. Now, one thing I don't like is, this is the things that I don't like. One, I feel like the game isn't super forthcoming about the fact that it's seasonal. So new players are going to come in, they're going to get real confused. They're going to spend money like any other gacha game. And a lot of the stuff that you can buy, right? If we look at the shop here, you can buy like these trackers, right? And you'll get Heliolite dice. You'll get these fragments. I've actually thought about buying some of these because I don't mind spending a little bit of money in gacha games. If I'm having a good time, throwing the developers, you know, even something as simple as like 20 bucks as a, hey, you spent time and effort on this. And yes, most gacha games are just gambling cash grabs. But if I enjoyed it for a week, you know, other games I would have to pay at minimum like 10 bucks, 20 bucks. So why not, right? But a lot of this stuff that you can buy, you're going to lose, right? You'll lose this essence of creation. You will lose all of the books that you get. You will lose all of the crafting materials that you'll get, right? And I feel like the game, at least when I was downloading it and all the things I was reading about it, didn't really come forthright about seasonal stuff. Now, I'm not saying it's not there, and I haven't gone back to double check, because basically the whole purpose of this is new player, no research. What is the game giving me, right? So that could be a bit of a slippery slope for people. I'll be so completely honest. I feel like there's going to be people who are going to start the game. They're going to spend money. Like I said, you can buy these shards, you can buy stamina, but you buy stamina to run dungeons, and all the gear that you get from those dungeons, you eventually lose. Now, of course, these are only $1, so people could argue, hey, you're only losing $1, but they're going to be people who feel like they're kind of getting robbed. And who's correct? Probably both to an extent, right? There is a certain kind of consumer due diligence you should be doing, but I can't blame people for coming in. And realistically, with gacha, the idea that you would reset someone's account after I just spent all this money is something that doesn't even come to the forefront of my brain, right? Because it's like, how could you get away with that more than once? Like, how many people are really going to dump tons of money into an account that will then reset? But it does make sense that most of the things you'll spend your money on are really just expanding your account, you know? So that is a thing, right? That is a thing, that most of the things you will spend your money on is just expanding your account through getting champions, right? Because even this tracker right here, now that I'm thinking about it, you're getting these fragments, and the fragments get you champions that you do get to keep, right? So if I were to buy this, I would get a bunch of, you know, tier 1 fragments. Here it's tier 2 fragments. So yeah, I guess it's just the meander tracker now that I'm thinking about it. So that's not terrible. That's not terrible. But like I said, that is something that will probably upset some people, right? That some of this stuff you're going to lose, because one of the progress that you can lose, like if you bought those books and stuff like that, is, or if you're spending money to get resources that you then turn into books, gear, stuff like that. As I understand it, all of that stuff resets, right? So all of your books, all your masteries on a champion, you get to keep the champion, but everything else gets reset. Other thing I don't like, again, I beat a dead horse here. There's just so many menus, man. There's just so many screens, and they're all very pretty, and I love them, but they're great. But after a while, clicking through all these menus, oh my God, I start to go cross-eyed. And I will say, the one thing I respect is that at least it doesn't have pop-ups like Raid does. Holy Jesus, not having to deal with it, being able to click through the game and actually play the game without being bombarded by ads every 30 seconds. Wow, what a breath of fresh air. So other than that, other game modes we have a meander thing, if I can find it. Here we go. We also have the adventure stuff, right? Fey Meander, it's basically this game's version of Doom Tower. Fallen Shadowspire, this is specifically for the tower defense style game mode. So this game right now kind of has the traditional grid-based auto battler thing going on. It's got a magic chess, like auto chess feature, and it's also got a tower defense feature, which I think is very interesting to have 3 completely different kinds of game modes all boiled into the same soup of the game. And it actually makes sense. Like, the ingredients do play well, because turns out a lot of champions that, you know, fight in grid-based combat, they're already kind of designed to work in auto chess, and a lot of them are already kind of designed to work in tower defense. So, wow, chef's kiss to that one. Outlands Rift, this is kind of like another clan boss. There's actually a couple of clan bosses. There's this one, there's the Temporal Vortex, and then there's the weekly challenge, this big dragon fella. And then of course we have the area exploration, doing the in-game ARPG main quest line, which was thoroughly enjoyable. So ultimately, Dragonheir, I think it's great. I think a lot of people can pick it up and get some fun out of it. You'll get some pulls. We will be doing pulls here shortly, because I don't know. I don't know what champions do. I'm just kind of deferring to the internet. Rayta here seems like she is she seemed to fluctuate between A+ and S. And we have what's your name? Analysis. We'll go with Analysis. And these are summoning events. They're kind of like the guaranteeds we used to have in Raid that we don't really get anymore. We did get them we did get a couple of them not too long ago, like a couple days ago, to help people get the epics for the Mikage fusion. But this seems to be like the meat of actual summoning events. And I most other games, I think I've heard the term banner pulls or banners, and that's what I'm assuming this is. So at this point, we've already pulled enough Heliolite dice to finish Rayta, and I don't know, this is kind of one of the things, because it seems like I should use them all in Analysis, but it took us about a week to get enough Heliolites to get Rayta. So in my head, we should get enough Heliolite dice to finish both of these banner pulls. And we haven't pulled Heliolites for anything else. We had our prophecy summons where we did have a bunch of guaranteed champions. That's something else I should look into, because I should look into see actually whether or not I should have been a little more careful with the prophecy summons, I think, with these guaranteed legendaries, to actually look up whether or not they're good. I see this guy a lot. Like this guy right here, I see him a ton. But I don't see him almost at all, and I don't see her almost at all. So I actually don't know if I pulled the right thing or I kept the right things with my prophecy summons. You live and you learn. We also got 23 days to finish it, so we're not feeling super pressed. And this guy, I think, is kind of like our first 20 or 30 summons. So, you know, if nothing else, we can at least probably get 20 to 30 summons to get this guy, right? So we're gonna, in our next video, we're just gonna do a pull video, and we're kind of see what we do with the Rayta summons. So other than that, guys, that's really it. I've given you everything about Dragonheir that I've experienced thus far. The game really does give you a lot of free stuff right off the bat. I imagine that'll probably slow down. Who can say? Or it might not even be a new player thing as much as a start of the season thing, right? We do also have another season event starting soon in 6 hours, Thunder's Rumble. So we'll be checking that out. Lots of content to do in the game, but the nice part I find is that if you're doing just your dailies, you can get through them really quickly. You know what I mean? It takes like 10-15 minutes to get through your dailies. So yeah, that's about it, guys. That's all I can think of for now. Dragonheir, I would give a solid, in terms of gacha games, I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10. I think you can get a lot of fun out of it. You don't really need to dump a lot of money into the game to progress. And frankly, the game doesn't really demand a lot of money from you. You know what I mean? Some of these packs are $1, $2. Nothing crazy, but you know, some things that can help you probably finish a banner pull or whatever. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think. And if you are a Dragonheir player, let me know what I'm doing wrong, because I'm looking it up on the internet, and I will be honest, the game doesn't seem that popular, especially on YouTube, because I can't find a lot of YouTube supplements that really tell me what I need to know. Except for like Scratch and Odd One. I've watched some of their videos to try and figure out what's going on, but other than that, right? So let me know what you guys think. Will you be trying out Dragonheir with me? Do you think that I'm making a mistake with Rayta? Leave all that stuff in the comments section below. Outside of that, if you like looking at my face, hearing my sultry voice, or you just think that this video was useful to you, maybe think about liking and subscribing to the channel. It really does help me. It means a lot to me every single time someone does it, because you guys are giving me the most valuable thing that a human has, their time. Anyway, guys, it's been a lot from me, but that's all for now. So I've been Titus. Until next time, I'll see you.